start with the parallel we've tried to draw with the ban on interest. Circumventing the ban on interest by through euphemisms, by getting around it through double sales and so on, the various ways of doing this. This is pretty much in everybody's interest. In the interest of the person providing the capital, the lenders, they want to earn a return for lending the money. It's interest, and you have plenty of people who are willing, just for the sake of getting credit, who are willing to pay interest. So you don't have a huge opposition to that, and you have enormous pressures to get around it. In the case of the inheritance system, that is not the case. Of course, you have people who have an interest in, who can see that the inheritance system is going to fragment the business, want to pass the business unfragmented to the next generation, and they know if the capital gets fragmented, the efficiency of the business is going to go down. Perhaps it's going to be impossible to maintain the business. They can see that. At the same time, there are people who are going to oppose any reinterpretation of the Islamic system. This is the big difference between the interest case and the inheritance system. Certainly women are going to oppose it. They have a strong interest in the enforcement of the inheritance system. And also second sons and third sons and so on. People are going to oppose it. So that is one point. Another point is that this is actually stated in the Quran. So it's, of course, as you say, you can reinterpret the inheritance system at the margin, and this certainly does occur. You have a lot of variations in the interpretations across regions in the Islamic world, certainly across the four schools of law. The Hanafis and the Malikis have interpretations that are slightly different, but they all share one property, which is by the standards of the time, they are quite egalitarian. They divide the estate among many people. I ought to point out that the incentives are so strong to enforce the Islamic inheritance system that even the minorities in the living under Islamic world, in the Ottoman Empire, the Jews and Armenians, including all the minorities, they start using variants of the Islamic inheritance system. Okay? And in fact, I'll add one more thing. In countries where massive secularization has taken place, Turkey being the single exception, the one part of Islamic law that they have not touched is the inheritance system because of the resistance. Okay, Morocco is a good example. Tunisia is another example. Both of these countries had radical reforms. In Tunisia's case, modeled after Ataturk's reforms in Turkey. The only country that actually formally abrogated the Islamic inheritance system is Turkey, where sons and daughters get an equal share. It's a system that is quite similar to the Islamic inheritance system, but has abolished the inequality that is stated in the Quran between men and male inheritors and female inheritors.
Hi, Timur. I was actually quite struck by the fact that the life of a partnership depends literally on the natural life of its partners. And I'm wondering if, in terms of, from economics perspective, what might be the implications of that? For instance, one thing I thought of immediately is that whether young people got together with young people so that the partnership is more likely to be long-lasting. I don't want to be a partner with a 90-year-old person who might die soon. Yeah. And secondly, how about the health system? If our partnership depends on the health of individuals, then are we requiring each other to take precautions to be healthy?
Yeah.
I mean, just a couple of implications.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting. I mean, your hypothesis concerning age is something that I would like to test, but in the data set I've put together, most people in the court records, you have information on their ethnic background, their religion, their profession, their father's name, etc. Lots of things. They don't give their age, and in fact, in many cases, the people don't know exactly. I don't know. What we do know is that there are tremendous incentives to avoid forming partnerships with anyone where the risk is too great. I mean, we do in the case of a 90-year-old person you want to form a partnership with. Formally, you form the partnership with the son. Okay. So technically, the 90-year-old passes the capital onto the son in his lifetime, which is something he's able to do, and that's the way you take care of it. What the implications would be for the health system, this is a big collective action problem, and of course everybody would gain from having people live longer, be healthier, but you still have all sorts of, as an economist, there are moral hazard problems and all sorts of things that are very difficult to solve. But the thing is, the partnership is an organizational form that is used even today. Even in any modern economy, you can form a limited partnership that is effectively, in the modern Turkish economy, modern American economy, you name it, you can form a partnership that is a limited partnership that is effectively mudarebe. Okay? This is possible, but that is only in certain contexts, in certain sectors, is that efficient. You cannot today form a steel factory, an automobile factory, entering into partnership with 10,000 people. The risks involved are much too great, and the renegotiation costs, if you're going to form partnerships that are going to last a day at a time, you renegotiate it every day, is much too great. I mean, the thing is, modern economy and modern sectors require more complex organizations. And this is just something, the transition from the simpler organizational form to the more complex organizational forms just did not happen from below, and ultimately happened. And how did this happen? After Abdülmecit, I didn't have time to go into it. You have lots of reforms. People start asking, why are joint stock companies and corporations not being founded? Why are those that are being founded in the Ottoman Empire are doing business in Istanbul, in Bursa, in Erzurum, and other places, but they're headquartered in Paris and London? And they start asking these questions, and Abdülmecit's successors, Abdülhamit and so on, then they start realizing you need a new, you need a new legal system, you need to have modern accounting, they start getting interested in establishing a stock market and so on. All of these things happen, and that's what happens during the 60 years. Finally, by the second Meşrutiyet, by 1908, all these reforms are in place, and then people finally, with these institutions in place, they start forming more complex complex organizations, okay? And then you're able to, through companies that are headquartered in Turkey itself, you're able to form modern enterprises, okay?
Just a reflection coming from a business school. I appreciate the institutions here. We are also concerned why the firms exist, and there are different explanations. One of them is resource-based view of the firm. I see that it is highly valuable to use in your context. Since the third one we are mentioning here is the capital. It's one of the most important, crucial, I think, resource for a company to exist. But also it seems that from your explanations, just a reflection, capital, the source of knowledge to be used as the core of economic growth. This is highly appreciated in the recent economic theories, not in the neoclassical view, but in the new versions. So in a sense, when you were explaining how the companies were losing their knowledge accumulation, by losing the owner and the person that established the organization. And this is a very crucial element, I think, for the lack of being long-term and passing the knowledge from one stream of management group to the next one. That was just a reflection too.
I mean, this is a very good point. One thing that you do not see occur in the Middle East is the emergence of family firms. Okay? This is something you get. And these, dynasties, commercial dynasties, or banking dynasties. These are things that do emerge in Western Europe, where you have families that maintain a business for several generations. This is something you don't see in the Ottoman world. And we have some recent biographies of great Ottoman merchants. The most recent one to come out is a great Egyptian merchant, Ismail Abu Taqiya. He's an absolutely brilliant entrepreneur, revives Egypt's sugar refining business, and is also becomes a major coffee importer to Egypt, and then exports coffee into the various parts of the Mediterranean. When he dies a fabulously wealthy man. He leaves behind hundreds of individual partnerships. Okay, and none of them, all of them die with him, and all of the contacts that he has established, the networks that he formed, just die with him. Because he has lots and lots of his 4 surviving wives and about 20 children. They start fighting over the capital. This gets dissipated, and within 10 years, the businesses are gone. Okay, this is the kind of thing that happened. Now, another thing you pointed out that you didn't use the term, but I think you meant that human capital is, of course, very, very important to the companies. There's a dimension that I haven't gone into here, and that is the education system. Okay, and you could say, well, you tell a story about the Ottoman Empire becoming underdeveloped or the Middle East becoming underdeveloped by looking at the schooling system. Okay, the quality of education declines, whereas in the 12th century, the quality of education you get through a medrese is not all that different from what you would get from a university. Eventually, there's a divergence. And you might ask, is this an independent reason, or does it have something to do with this? It actually has something to do with one of the organizations I talked about, the WARF. Okay, the organizations, they become very dysfunctional. These great medreses that are established several centuries after Christopher Columbus. There are medreses that are using geography books to talk about the world as being flat. Okay. And this is something, and the reason they're doing it is not because the teachers themselves have not heard about Christopher Columbus and that the world has been circumnavigated, about the shape of the earth and so on, not because they haven't heard it, but because the Waqf deed that governs the medrese specifies what books are to be used. Okay, so they continue to use, they have to use the same books. This is, of course, something that keeps the human capital limited, prevents the accumulation of human capital, and this is something ultimately that, of course, contributes to the underdevelopment.
Okay, I have a question about belief formation. I mean, one of the implications of your talk is that the Middle Eastern societies have not only not developed institutions essential for flexible commercial activity, but they have not also realized their own failure that they have not done so. I'm just wondering if you have an account of why somehow the belief of failure has not, occurred to people. I mean, or when it did, what form it took. I mean, did it take the form of military failure, or failure in economic terms, or failure in Islam itself? I mean, how did this belief of failure were realized? And if the voices before, even after majority realized that they were suppressed somehow or not, I mean, do you have any account of that?
Oh yes, this is also, you're touching on something very important. Actually, when failures occur, people see the failures quite quickly. Okay, so in the military, after the disasters in military disasters, naval disasters, and so on, they start wondering whether they're using arms that are good, whether they need to reorganize the military and so on. Reorganization follows. They don't always get it exactly right, but they do implement reform.